I feel bad for the Hulk as an intellectual property, I really do. For every step forward, he seems to take 2 steps back. It will likely be a long time before we see another solo Hulk movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He had his own Disney cartoon not too long ago, but that flopped. And to be perfectly honest, I've read many iterations of the Hulk in the past, and none of them really captured my attention for very long, if at all. He seemed to thrive better as a guest star, when he did what Hulk does best, be an unstoppable force of nature. But what happens when Hulk hits a point beyond being unstoppable and becomes something completely out of this world? For the answer to that question, you should be reading The Immortal Hulk. Written by Al Ewing, with art by Joe Bennett, Eric Nguyen, and inker Roy Jose, The Immortal Hulk takes everything we know and love about the Hulk, but removes one vital part of his story, the heroics. This is practically day one Hulk here, where the Hulk was treated more like a monster and not a purple pants wearing good guy. I think The Immortal Hulk only qualifies as a superhero comic in name, because it's much closer to being a horror comic more than anything else. There's a lot to unpack in this video, and spoilers will be inevitable, but I will keep them down to a minimum and give you fair warning before anything real big happens just in case you want to skip it. So let's take a look at The Immortal Hulk and really dive deep now into issue 1. The story begins with Bruce Banner doing what he does best in Hulk comics, aimlessly wandering around the United States like a hobo, trying to stay out of trouble and not get involved in things. Of course, he winds up in a gas station that just happens to get held up by an armed robber with a nervous finger. That anxiety results in the robber shooting a 12-year-old girl, which makes Hulk get mad, and gets Banner shot in the head. You'd think that would be the end, but this is still the first few pages. The story turns into the tale of that robber, who was just doing the job for a biker gang to get out of a tough spot. We're meant to feel bad for this guy, and it works. He's just a fellow in a bad situation who was trying to do whatever he could to hustle, and killing a kid was never part of that plan. Despite Banner being dead, somehow the Hulk still shows up and takes out the trash. The robber tries to escape, and he almost does. But then the Hulk finds him. The absolute enormity of how Joe Bennett draws the Hulk in these panels is almost as frightening as the expression on his face. This entire sequence is chilling, and still gives me goosebumps when I read it. Even talking about it right now for this video, I'm getting goosebumps. We've never seen a Hulk like this before. This is not a Hulk driven by justice, but a soulless version out for vengeance. This Hulk believes in an eye for an eye, and lacks the humanity of Banner in him. And that is what makes the Immortal Hulk so different from how previous writers have handled this character. The robber is brutally beaten to near death, and Banner is left wondering who is really in control of whom. Meanwhile, journalist Jackie McGee is investigating the robbery and how the man who was shot in the head sure looks a lot like that Bruce Banner guy, and begins to put the pieces together. And folks, that's just the first issue. The Immortal Hulk revolves around figuring out what the Hulk is. We have now learned that even if Banner wants to kill himself with a bullet to the head, the Hulk won't let him. He looms over Banner during the day, and when night comes, the Hulk takes over, and Banner has absolutely no say anymore in what happens at that point. This means the Hulk is doing some pretty messed up things without remorse in this comic. As her journalist friend gets deeper into her investigation, she enlists the help of another gamma-powered person, named Walter Lankowski, aka Alpha Flight's Sasquatch. This all leads to the mystery of the Green Door, and a power bigger than the Hulk that has absolute control over his personality. Realizing how out of control things are, it takes Earth's mightiest heroes to stop this version of the Hulk, and even then, it takes the power of the sun and an homage to Akira to end things. At least temporarily anyway, because, as we know, the Hulk never dies. So what is the mysterious Green Door, and what does it mean for our Gamma Giant? Well, that's where my plot points end, because you need to read the series to see what happens next. The comic reminds me a great deal of Alan Moore and John Toddlebin's run on Swamp Thing, from the art to the storytelling and even the dynamic page layouts. Although they're not quite as bold as what Swamp Thing occasionally used to do. It's legit scary seeing a completely unhinged Hulk with no inhibitions, having no problem viciously beating up his allies, just as bad as he'd beat up his enemies. It's even scarier to see what happens after that big point in the comic, but that's going to be for a separate spoiler-filled video altogether, because really, you gotta reading it at this point. If anyone spoils this for you, you Hulk smash them. You Hulk smash them good. The Immortal Hulk is a very intense examination of the duality of Banner and the Hulk. The comparisons to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde were never more accurate than with this incarnation of the Green Behemoth. Al Ewing removed all the morality of Banner and left us with the pure, brutish husk of the Hulk, who now sees things in very black and white terms. This comic seems to be really trying to break down what it is that actually is inside both Banner and the Hulk, what separates them, what ties them together, and the darkness that comes from being this kind of a character. There's a lot more I could say about this, but honestly, it's the kind of thing I'd rather you guys just check out for yourselves and give it a read. As of this video, I'm up to issue 12, and the story somehow just keeps getting bigger and stronger. I'm not even sure how this craziness is going to end, but I am very interested in it. And of course, I have to come back to the artwork once again, because this is what makes the Hulk comic also so good. There's a great balance between a very, very awesome story and this amazing artwork that just makes the Hulk really look monstrous in the best way possible. And by monstrous, I don't mean some kind of grotesque, hideous thing, but clearly something that's just not human. And that makes this so scary, because we're used to seeing the Hulk be kind of a mortal person and a mortal character, but even the way he's drawn now, that's all gone. This is a Hulk that even his friends are scared of. I always liked the Hulk character, but as I mentioned before, never went out of my way to read his books. But now, this is on top of my pull list. I highly recommend this comic. Just give the first issue a shot, and I promise you're going to be as hooked as I am. I'm Matthew from Nerd News Today, and that's why you should be reading The Immortal Hulk.